Rich, yesterday Cyberpunk 2077 got its 1.2 patch, and guess what you're actually looking at here?
A fixed game, is it?
Kind of, yeah.
Almost.
Kind
Although
of.
I did see a glitchy sheet on the wall back there.
Well, this is it. Like, I haven't fixed all the glitches, not from what I played. So I played like 2 or 3 hours on the last gen consoles.
Yeah.
And there are some bugs, which we'll talk about towards the end. But this is the frame rate, and that was the big thing for me. That was the issue with the last patch. Well, and the launch patch. Here we are running on the Xbox One S. So we're going to run through the Xbox One S first with my fantastic driving. And then we're going to head across to the PS4. So the Xbox One S before in patch 1.1 was high teens to low 20s for the driving. And as you can see here, it actually hit 30.
Yeah, it looks playable.
That's the thing, right? It's not perfect, but it's definitely playable. Well, from a driving perspective. We'll work through each one as we get on. There is this weird lighting bug now, though.
Really?
Where it's getting dark and light.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know whether that's because I'm in a super fast car and I'm going to go in ahead of getting out the zone too quickly. Do you know what I mean?
You don't look like you're going that fast, though. Or
I'm going 206 miles an hour.
Really?
Yeah. Speed's bottom left, Rich. So
it doesn't look like it.
It feels like it because I can't control this car when I'm going top speed. It's crazy. But yeah, so like before, it's almost like 10-20% improvement in terms of frames. And it takes it from an unplayable state to a playable state. Like I said, not perfect. And my driving is awful no matter the frame rates.
You're going fast, to be fair.
And this is it, right? These cars this is light as anything. I've only got to hit a curve and that's it, I'm done. Right? We're in the city now. First things first, the steam drains, like better than 10 FPS is what it was at launch, which is fantastic.
They fixed the steam, everyone.
Yeah, that's a major thing for me. Like good frame rate on the Steam, but like as we can see, like when it goes to 31, that means the screen tears. I counted the frames by hand after, but it's like mid 20s to 30, which is fantastic. Honestly, they promised they'd fix it. I still think there's another patch that they need to do to take it to the next level.
Yeah,
but I think you can actually play it now.
Yeah, that is a major plus because I remember the first time we did the very first comparison, and we were shocked, right? By how
it's
bad
actually
it was.
This area, Rich, that we were laughing in just out of disbelief at how they couldn't get the frame rate on the Steam.
Yeah, it was appalling.
To be anything close to 30, and now it actually touches 30. It's mainly like kind of mid 20s to like 30. But it's progress, and that's the main thing. And then people who've actually got it I think they can play it, because I played it for I actually forgot that I was doing a video and started doing a couple of side missions, and I was like, shit, I kind of forgot for a minute how broken it was. And then we got some combat, and the combat is obviously not as good as the others.
No,
but for me, this was the most mental bit of combat I've got into in quite some time. There's so many people. There is a bit of a drop. And it does drop on occasion. Like, this is because there's loads of people spawning in behind me. But it does on occasion drop to like the mid-teens. But for the most part, it's kind of low to mid-20s. And then it also has this weird thing where it locks up. I'll show you some more examples in a bit. But there's so many men here. I don't want to say it's understandable that the frame rate drops this low, because it's not. But I think before I couldn't have played this, whereas now I can play this section. So definite progress. Definitely not perfect or 100% yet.
Yeah, but getting there.
It's in a state where now people can actually play it, and I think that's the important thing. But like I said, I still think it needs another patch just to fine-tune it slightly and make it, on the 1S anyway, in a much more playable state. And the reason I stipulate the 1S, Rich, is because when we look at the PS4 in a second, we're going to see some pretty kind of amazing scenes, I guess.
Okay.
So much so that I genuinely feel like this is going to be back on the PlayStation Store anytime soon.
Oh, wow.
Because
look at that. It's locked.
Yeah, like it is. Like it isn't locked in 30 all the time, but for a good chunk of this, like it is 30.
Nice.
It should be worth pointing out that I couldn't do a fair test because I didn't have the Colburn, I think it's called, in Josh's save.
Right.
But so I'm not going 200 miles an hour. I'm going 115.
Right.
But I mean, I'm flying through the city. I'm trying to pick populated areas, different areas, going from area to area, and it's pretty. I don't want to say it's rock solid, but before it was mid to low 20s.
Yeah, I am still seeing
Now,
a little bit of weirdness with the lighting as well.
yeah, and there is. The graphical bugs are still there, but for me, it was getting the frame rate.
Yeah.
The video that I did last time, I think. Oh, you didn't do it last time. It was
No.
I did it on a weekend, didn't I? Because they dropped it on a Friday night, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like as I was saying in that one, it was just it's frankly ridiculous, and it was unplayable still. Now it's playable. Yeah, there is some weirdness going on, but it's rock solid.
Yeah.
Like the 1S, just needs a little bit more refinement, bugs fixed and stuff. So probably another big patch away from being in a much better state, but still, like this is decent.
Did CD Projekt Red ever announce plans for like another major patch? Because there was January, February. Those are here now because this one was delayed. They've not actually announced any other plans, have they?
But I mean, this was like 3-4 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But like, look, it's Rich, the combat, and we're hitting like 29, 30. Like, it actually, like, it does drop as low as the low 20s.
Yeah.
In intense moments, like explosions and anything with particle effects and stuff like that. But it's playable, which is the crazy thing. That's me trying to hit the camera.
This does look like it. You know, you could put this back on the PS Store now, and
yeah,
you wouldn't get many complaints, would you?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like there are definitely games that are out there on the PS Store now that perform worse than this.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, definitely. And I love that we've come to that kind of standard. It's like, what's worse? But
what
this
about
is
something
playable.
like Alekine's gun? I know you're fond of that.
Oh, that was embarrassing. But even if you go more profile, and even if you go to something like Anthem, right?
Yeah.
EA never took Anthem off the store, and it was in a much worse playable state than this.
Yeah.
So what you've got now is a playable game, and I think that's the important thing. Like you can actually experience Cyberpunk in a fairly decent fashion. And again, walking through the city, and it's like high 20s compared to, like, I think it was like mid to low last time.
Yeah.
It actually hits 30 FPS now, which I frankly didn't think they could do based on the last patch. So my hat goes off to them. The city does look a little less populated, as we'll see here. There's like less people around.
Well, that's presumably how they've done it, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said how they've done it, because in a minute there's little things that I noticed, which were kind of cool. Clearly, how they've just managed to cope with having such a mental game on such old tech.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, Rich, across the board, it's playable. We are in a minute going to move on to something that I have noticed that is apparent on both versions, and that is the locking up, which actually used to happen on all platforms. We've not tested it on the Series X, S or PS5 yet, but especially on the PS4 and the Xbox One S, it is prone to lock up and hang when you're moving areas for the most part. So it's clear that, like, I think you're getting ahead of the load, and we're going to see that now, Rich. And it's like that.
Yeah.
And that's not just like every so often. It's probably it's mostly when you're moving fast speeds or into a new area. Yeah, it's quite bad on the Xbox One S, like across the board. And I think that's a major thing. But on the
Yeah.
PS4, the hang is only minuscule.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the PS4 is more powerful. So you can see it now. Like it's only a split second. But yeah, something that does definitely need to be fixed.
Yeah.
But that's still one of the big issues. And still, it's buggy, like we're about to see now, Rich, which is some weird kind of artifacting bug in the elevator.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and that happened a few times. And then I tried to replicate it, and I couldn't replicate it. So it's just more to point out that there is bugs. It's not perfect.
You sure that's
more
not
the fact
someone moving out their planks of wood? They've left them in the lift.
Rich, this is my favourite thing. Like, look, fine, yeah?
Yeah.
No issues?
No, yeah.
Let's slow it down. And this is what I think they've done, is a lot of kind of ways to save memory, I guess, and just make it more effective. That's me slowing it down at 10%. Like, they T-pose him, but you don't notice that because of how quickly I move the camera.
Yeah.
So I imagine this is the things that they're doing behind the scenes to make it run on these kind of super old platforms. And I just found that really interesting personally.
Fair enough. It's odd.
But yeah, Rich, I think the takeaway is that it's playable now, which is fantastic. It definitely still needs polishing. But if it launched like this, I don't think people have made an issue.
No.
Really don't. People would have moaned a little bit about how it wasn't polished, but and it isn't polished. But this is definitely a state now where people can actually play it, and I think that's the main thing. We shouldn't praise a dev for getting a game in a playable state, obviously, because
it should have been like that in the first place.
Yeah, and as a consumer, you want it as polished as possible. But it's now a place where people can actually play it, Rich, and that, in my eyes, is fantastic. Because I hope the conversation turns from the bugs and the issues into actually how good a game it is, because I loved it. And then hopefully, Rich, that might be the last video that we do on the patches, until the next gen patches.
Yeah.
But if they fix it considerably with 1.3, and then we'll definitely do another video on Cyberpunk.
We don't want to become the Cyberpunk channel, but you know.
No. We have a service and a duty, Rich, that we have to perform.
Certainly.
But that's it. Patch 1.2, Cyberpunk 2077, available now on all the consoles and PC. Thank you very much for watching, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Cheers, folks. Bye.
Bye.